Minnesota Vikings are taking on the Washington Commanders on Sunday, and it is not the game we expected. We thought it'd be a battle between two teams fighting for playoff position, but it's 4-8 versus 3-9. What can we glean from it? Are both quarterbacks going to play in another battle of the 2024 NFL draft class? Plus, what could this mean for the future of both franchises? As there is a lot at stake from that perspective. We'll talk about all that and more here on another episode of The Real Forno Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Real Forno Show, hosted by the one and only Tyler Forness. A to Z Sports sought him out to be their Minnesota Vikings reporter and NFL analyst. And he's a proud contributor over at SKOL North's Purple Daily. Tyler is also the captivating host of The Good, The Bad, and The Hungry on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network, and a founding member of Vikings First and SKOL.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of The Real Forno Show, sponsored by our friends at Underdog Fantasy, where with the promo code Forno, you can get $100 in bonus credits with your first $5 play. My name is Tyler Forness. With me, as always, in the top left corner is producer Dave. And luckily for us, we are not dealing with a concussion nor a dislocated elbow. And that is exactly what these quarterbacks are trying to come back from. And it sounds like both of them are going to play. Before we kind of get into that, Dave, how are you doing on this nice Thursday evening?
I'm doing as good as I can be. Trying to be in a good mood.
Hey, it's hard to be in a good mood when your team is in this kind of situation. And hey, let's just be real. 4-8 Minnesota Vikings are just like my 4-8 Florida Gators. What a year to be me. I got to tell you, not exactly the best shape in the world to be in, but they did just hire new offensive coordinator Buster Faulkner, who I'm very excited about. I'm gonna start calling him Buster Bar or something like that, just to have a little bit of extra fun. Do you know what a Buster Bar is, Dave?
Well, it's a candy bar, isn't it?
No, it's an ice cream treat from Dairy Queen. Yeah,
that's
all
right.
Let's start off this show with a question from Daniel Brueggemann. How do we fix this hot mess? Because all I'm seeing is the same old next year, praying for different results. We won't even get to enjoy the offseason, and we're not even in control of our C. I'm not quite sure what he meant by C, but I kind of understand where you're going here, Daniel. Look, this isn't a great place to be. And I think we can start here with the J.J. McCarthy discussion, because Kevin O'Connell said something really interesting on Wednesday that we should have brought up last night on X's and Skulls, because I think it's really interesting. O'Connell talked about not focusing on the mechanics at all. And it does kind of feel like they're being a little jerky and reactionary with McCarthy's development rather than just kind of stay the course. Now, how much of that is staying the course within, I'm just going to put this steak somewhere else on the grill versus, oh my gosh, I got to take it off. I got to cook it in a pan. No, I got to cook it in the oven. I think they're just adjusting on the fly versus a complete overhaul every single week based. Look, I'm just going to be real. I think Kevin O'Connell sticks to talking to the media. He doesn't control the narrative well enough, and he speaks too much in platitudes and sometimes when he answers questions, you can tell by listening and reading the transcripts that he meanders a little bit too much and he gets away from his point. And then eventually he circles back to it. But sometimes he gives us a little too much information in that context, which I really enjoy as somebody who covers the team full time. But it does raise eyebrows as, okay, why are you now saying we're not going to really focus that much on mechanics? And that's a paraphrased comment. I just want to be clear, because, that was a really big focus for you. And I thought O'Connell's answer was very interesting in the fact that it's not so much that they want to ignore mechanics, that McCarthy is getting too focused on those mechanics and it's harming him within the context of the game. And that's why you're seeing so many breakdowns. And that's why you're seeing so many balls get thrown all over the place and his mechanics go awry. And I've talked about in this space wanting tempo. And the reason you want tempo is because then you're not thinking, you're just doing. And by not thinking and just doing, you're not overthinking. And then you're also not focusing on the fact that, hey, I need to be doing this. I need to be doing that. you're just playing. And if you're thinking, that can cause a bevy of issues on its own right. So by just having him focused on the playing aspect, there's not a whole lot you can do to fix mechanics. Hey, if it's one thing and you see it, hey, let's spend an hour this week working on it and be like, hey, this is what you're doing, and we need to try and control that, and this is how we need to fix it. And a lot of times it's more of a quicker fix, but this is a young quarterback who gets away from his mechanics far too often, because when they're good, he's a good football player, and we've seen that. And that's why these struggles have become so inherently frustrating as analysts and fans, because we've seen the really good. Why can't we get that consistently? That's the issue here. It's not that he can't be good. It's that he doesn't want to always be good with how he plays. And that stinks. Freddie says KOC talks like a dude running for office. Yeah, he talks like a politician. And that can be both a good and a bad thing, because you don't want to tell other people what you're thinking and what you want to do. But at the same time, it can also get you in trouble because you're too focused on not telling anybody anything. So how do you...
Well, but a bunch of people get pissed off at Zimmer for going, we've got to play better. And that's all he'd answer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's a happy medium between the two. I like that Zimmer wouldn't really give answers, but it also stinks because he doesn't give you anything. Where I think KOC doesn't really answer a lot of the questions, but he then also gives you way too much. And then you're left to opine. Because when it came to, who's going to be the starter when J.J. McCarthy is healthy? All KOC had to do was say the second J.J. McCarthy is healthy and gets a full week of practice, he's the guy. But he kept beating around the bush and leaving that door open. And by leaving that door open, it created a whole nother bevy of headlines and a bevy of talking points to where all of a sudden now you don't really know what's going on. That's not healthy either. And I think with a guy like O'Connell, you really need to do a better job of working on how you communicate some of these points. You need to be extra focused in how you're talking. And you know what? If you can shut down, when we deem McCarthy's ready to come back, he's going to come back straight up. And you said we want him to have a full week of practice. So all you have to do is say, look, once he's healthy, has a full week of practice, he's going to be the starter. That would have ended all conversations. But no, guess what it did? It lingered and lingered and lingered. And we got think pieces and all these extra topics. Oh, is Carson Wentz going to be the guy? We didn't need any of that. None of that had to happen. But it's because of KOC's talking and how he structures his words when he's talking in a press conference. And it's that, as Freddie mentioned, KOC talks like he's running for office. That is a negative in this context. And when it comes to J.J. McCarthy and some of the mechanical stuff, it raises other questions. Are you being herky-jerky with his development? Are you being too reactionary? Or are you just a bad communicator in this sense? And your development plan you feel is going fine behind the scenes, but you're just telling us in a very, very poor way. That's... Oh, Aaron, enjoy. I love Texas Roadhouse. Might go there on Sunday for my birthday. I haven't decided yet. I love me a good steak. But these are all questions that come because Kevin O'Connell is not straightforward enough with some of his conversations. And that's all he has to be. It's platitudes. Bingo, Freddie. Bingo. Platitudes are fine most of the time. You don't want me to tell you, hey, this is how you have to do things. This is X, Y, and Z. But at the end of the day, you should be able to communicate a cohesive, clear vision that also doesn't tell us everything. And Kevin O'Connell has failed to do that with J.J. McCarthy. I think he could have avoided a lot of issues and a lot of not stupid questions from the media, because I don't think that's fair to them, because they're asking questions based on what Kevin O'Connell is presenting to us. But they become stupid questions because they shouldn't have to be asked in the first place, because O'Connell could just give a clear vision. You can give a clear vision without telling us every detail. And to me, that's where things go off the rails. I wish that we just had a coach that was a little bit more focused with how he's doing that communication. You don't have to tell us everything. I don't want you to tell us everything because then that helps the opponents. It's a negative on your football team, but there's levels to this conversation. You could have avoided 6 weeks of Carson Wentz talk by just saying McCarthy will return. And that's all.
Chris says maybe KOC isn't the QB whisperer. Kyle Shanahan fixed Sam Darnold. Then who fixed Kirk Cousins?
I don't know if anybody fixed Kirk Cousins. I think Kirk Cousins was just solid.
Kirk Cousins was a 500 quarterback when KOC was hired. Exactly 500.
I don't think. Okay, so in that context, I don't think fixed would be the right word because to me, fixed means
improved.
Broken. Yeah, I think Kevin O'Connell elevated Kirk Cousins, but the whole Sam Darnold thing is fascinating because, especially when it came from Darnold's mouth, that he learned a lot from Brock Purdy and just how Purdy approached the off the field stuff, the study habits, and especially in the college game. Sometimes you don't need to have great study habits because, hey, we're just going to put you in position to succeed. You just need to look at this defender, and this defender will tell you exactly what to do. You can do that in college. You can't do that in the NFL. So I remember when I went into college, look, I coasted through high school. I didn't have to pick up a book and study at all. I got a 3.6 GPA. I probably could have got a 4.0 if I tried, but I didn't. And that's something I kind of just got to live with. But then once I got to college, I had to study. I didn't know how to do that. And I think you have some NFL quarterbacks that have some of that to them. And I think Sam Darnold's comments on that highlight it because you don't have to do the same kind of level of preparation in high school that you do in college. And it's the same from college to the NFL. So I wonder who's responsible for elevating him. I do think the time in San Francisco was incredibly important for Sam Darnold, but I don't think that he has the season he does in 24 without it. I also don't think you can't just give all the credit to Kyle Shanahan. I think you have to give a lot of it to Kevin O'Connell because he did elevate. And that's where I bring up a really interesting point. And I think the hypothesis itself is kind of dumb, but then once you dive into the why that hypothesis is there, it makes a little bit of sense. It's very interesting that Kevin O'Connell's never had a quarterback succeed in his offense under the age of 27 years old. And that age threshold itself is kind of redundant. It's kind of dumb. But when you think of, hey, what does a 27-year-old have that a 22, 23-year-old doesn't? They have their base underneath them. They have their life together. They have the basics of the position down to a T. And that is what you had with Sam Darnold. That's what you had with Kirk Cousins, Nick Mullins, Josh Dobbs. There was a semblance of, I can trust you to throw from a clean base. I can trust you to have good mechanics more often than not. I can trust you to just operate the offense. And I think that's what you're seeing right now with J.J. McCarthy. You saw it with Max Brosmer. You saw it with Jaron Hall. I still wish we would have got the rest of that Atlanta game because I think the story would be different with Hall if we did. But that's neither here nor there. He is out of the league, and there's a reason why. But when you look at the young quarterbacks, they don't have that mechanical base. They don't have that, hey, I can just operate the basics of an offense. Some guys come in and do. You know, it was pointed out to me, CJ Stroud did, Drake May did. But you have to look at it from a different perspective. There's a reason they were top
Stroud. It's taken over a year for him.
No, he was great off the jump.
CJ Stroud, Houston. I'm thinking of what's his name with the Panthers.
I don't even think Bryce Young's that good. I'm going to be real with you.
But he's improved this year.
Yes, he has. But you have guys who are top 3 picks that just come in and play really well right away. There's a reason they're top 3 picks. You're talking about a guy in J.J. McCarthy who's the 10th overall pick. He didn't have that stuff. And we talked about it in real time. Go look up the episode of SKOL Search, which when we're done with this, I will pin that episode and listen to me talk about him. Because there were levels to this conversation where there was a lot of good with J.J. McCarthy. But you had such small sample sizes to where it was, well, is he going to be able to do all that right away? Is he going to be good right away? Odie, that's enough, honey. Odie is getting extra playful and scratching at the closet door.
Well, and there seems to be now a developing trend that a quarterback should have X number of pass plays in college. I think the number's 500 or something like that.
Well, that 500 number is like almost every quarterback nowadays has that. Unless you're Mitch Trubisky, if you're a one-year starter, sometimes you don't have that. I wonder if we're going to start trending more toward the Bill Parcells level of, because he had that list, 30 collegiate starts, X amount of pass attempts. You had to be at least a certain height. I'm going to be honest. I think the height thing is going to come back because you're having these guys drafted under 5 feet that just aren't performing. Kyler Murray might not be the Arizona Cardinals starting quarterback for very long. Bryce Young might not be long in the tooth for Carolina either.
How tall is Kyler Murray? 4'9"?
5'9".
He
looks a lot smaller than that, though. Oh, I said under 5. I meant under 6 foot. I think height matters to a certain extent. Like Baker's, he's 6 foot and 5/8. If he was 6'2", we'd be having different conversations about Baker Mayfield because he'd be able to do just a little bit more. It's not you can't do it if you're shorter. It just makes the job harder because you have to create more for yourself. And when you do that, it adds an extra variable. So this whole conversation about, you need to have like a certain amount of pass attempts. I think experience is always better. And the more you have, the better picture it paints for the draft analysis and trying to project forward. But I also don't think it's this, you have to reach a certain threshold in order to be good. I think it's a correlation doesn't equal causation kind of thing. And you could say that about a lot of different elements of the whole draft process. Just because you do one thing doesn't mean it's an automatic disqualifier. There's a whole other portion to the discussion. So with McCarthy, kind of going back to that SKOL search, you can just see how I had a late second round grade on him. And I was fine with him picked at 10th overall because he's a quarterback and the upside was there. But the high variables within the context of who he was, that like they were prevalent. They were present. And I was okay having him. I think I had him at either 39th or 40th overall on my big board. I was in a similar spot to Dane Brugler. And Dane Brugler might be the most respected draft analyst in the entire business. And that's not to toot my own horn, but like there were people who were really just unsure about McCarthy because of that sample size. And the Jayden Daniels, people were more sure on certain things because he had 5 years as a starter. That matters too. So kind of to wrap this all up in a bow, the massive variables, with J.J. McCarthy are why we're seeing so much of this inconsistent play. And I think we're going to start seeing some of those inconsistencies get ironed up because he's getting more experience. He has more experience, not just on the field, but in the quarterback room and going over his film. And I think by not focusing on the mechanical stuff, look, the mechanics are just not going to be good until next year at the earliest. They just aren't. Just stop focusing on it and just let him play. Within the course of a game, hey, if you see something happen like 5 times, okay, hey, you're oversetting, you're overstriding, keep your feet together, and let's go. You can have some of those conversations, but we don't need to spend a bunch of time focusing on it in practice. Focus on how you're going to read the defense, how you're going to be able to throw accurately on a 15-yard dig route. Those are the things we should be focusing on. And I understand some of that's going to be mechanics, but focus on the little things within the context of a game plan. Work on that. Get him comfortable with the game plan and reading those defenses and work on the film room stuff. Then all of a sudden, you're going to have him playing a little bit more free, a little bit more knowledgeable, and he's going to be able to react more instead of think. And that's going to be a very, very good thing for this Minnesota Vikings team. Now, will that mean J.J. McCarthy will be good? I don't know. Nobody can tell you that right now. Right now, J.J. McCarthy's a bad quarterback. That doesn't mean he has to stay that way. And I'm very, very interested to see this next level of progression, Dave, because if he takes a step and you feel good about these last 5 games, the 2025-26 offseason is going to feel a lot different than if he stinks. And I think that's why these are going to be so important. It's not just about getting reps. It's about building off of what you've already done. How can you show growth in any way, shape, or form from what you put on field, on tape for those first 6 starts versus the next 5? Remember, Josh Allen only had, in his first season, he only had 11 starts. And I don't want to say he's the next Josh Allen, far from it. But when you talk about mechanical inconsistencies like this, when you talk about the high variance, you're talking about players like Josh Allen and Anthony Richardson. You just are. Guys like Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert have never had this high of a variance, even as rookies. There were still negatives, but their baseline was so much higher. We're talking about J.J. McCarthy like Allen and Richardson because of the high variance. So can he level that out? Can a bad game frame just be like a negative 0.25 EPA instead of a negative 0.7? That's all we're asking. Improve the baseline. I think that we can feel a hell of a lot better about where we're going to be with him moving forward. And yeah, it's going to be very interesting to kind of watch this continue to grow and develop. And Sunday's game, look, J.J. McCarthy cleared the protocol today, so he's going to start. And how he handles these next few games is going to tell us everything we need to know.
I think it'd be extremely amusing if JJ goes out there and just balls out. Not having to think about it and suddenly bam, bam, bam.
There is a real world where that happens. And if that happens, hell yeah, that rocks. I don't think any of us are complaining about it. But we have to live in the real world. And we have to live in a world that, look, this very well could not happen. So how are we going to adjust? How are we going to handle some of this? I want to see it. I want to see him play. And look, we just very well might have a bad quarterback, but we still need to see more. We need to see a lot more. A lot. 6 starts isn't enough to fully condemn. I did make the argument, I think, last week about how, hey, maybe Kevin O'Connell's words about the organizations fail young quarterbacks, for young quarterbacks fail organizations. I think you can make the case. The more I think about it, the less I feel strongly about it because it is such a small sample size. But with him having 4 documented injuries in 8 games, you could make the argument that he's failing the organization more than they're failing him. And there are so many variables behind that. But sometimes, as much as we talk about KOC speaking in platitudes, we have to because we don't have every piece of information. And that is where, with J.J. McCarthy, things could get really interesting because we don't have every piece of information. We are not in every single meeting. We're not at every single practice having those conversations and looking at everything that's going on behind the scenes. So we have to look at it from a perspective with a wide angle lens. And right now, with that wide angle lens, we're looking at a player that, man, it feels like it's a combination of they're failing each other. Because McCarthy's getting hurt, and 2 of those injuries are 100% his fault, in my opinion, because he is putting his body in harm's way when he does not have to. And the older he gets,
which 2?
The concussion and the high ankle sprain.
Okay,
where if we believe that concussion
the high ankles,
happened,
he was scrambling and got rolled up on.
All he had to, he put himself in harm's way by not running straight out of bounds and trying to cut up more upfield. A veteran quarterback will just run out of bounds. He doesn't get rolled up on. That's why I'm putting the blame on him. That, like, a hip drop tackle just kind of sucks, but you need to be smarter with your body when you are in open space. And he wasn't. And you can argue the exact same thing with the concussion if it was on the hit by the sidelines, because he could have just gone out of bounds and saved himself hit. Instead, curls back inside, gets whacked, and concussion. So he needs to do a better job of that, and that will come with time. It comes with age, because NFL players hit different than college players. They just do. So there's different levels to every aspect of this. And McCarthy has had a hell of a learning curve so far. And we'll see if he can end up figuring it out over the course of a long period of time. But what else you can figure out over a long period of time is how to have even more fun with our friends at Underdog Fantasy, Dave. And I got to tell you, I had a lot of fun. I wasn't able to have that extra fun this past weekend because I was in Mexico, because it's not available in Mexico. It's only available in a few states in the United States of America, 33 of them, I believe, to be exact. And you can have fun. This weekend is going to be filled with college football games because it's championship weekend. And with the promo code Forno, you can get, it's the last weekend where you can get, with a first $5 play, you can get $100 in bonus credits. Next week, it'll be $75. So make sure you jump in this week and you get those $100 in bonus credits to be able to have some fun with me. I'll have a play for the weekend. I'll have a play for the Vikings game. And we'll build some lineups and have some fun together. Just use that promo code Forno, Forno, and get those bonus credits. But remember, it's all about fun. So if you feel like you're having just a little bit too much fun, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. Dave, this is a really, really fascinating matchup to look at from both sides of the ball. And I want to spend a little bit more time talking about the Commanders, because they nearly beat the Broncos last week. They had the perfect play called, but Nick Bonito ended up getting his hands up at the right time. Marcus Mariota just couldn't clear him. Batted down that 2-point conversion at the end. Frustrating way to lose, but when you're 3-8, you got to take those chances, because they could have been 4-8, but instead they're 3-9. And they played the Broncos really well with Marcus Mariota. So now that they're probably getting Jayden Daniels back, they have Terry McLaurin. This offense could look a lot different. And how much will they run Jayden Daniels, considering he's dealing with that dislocated elbow, which will probably have some sort of a brace or protective element on it? I'm not really sure, but this offense functions significantly better when he's at the helm. So can the Vikings really be able to cover these wide receivers? Deebo Samuel, they love to do a lot of screens and stuff. Just get the ball in his hands, let him do things. Terry McLaurin can attack every level of the field. They love to use him as like an X receiver and have him go vertical. They have a solid running game with a trio of backs: Jeremy McNichols, Chris Rodriguez, and Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. I keep forgetting he wants to go by Bill Krosky-Merritt, which Ja'Cory to Bill is quite the change, but we've seen weirder before. So how will they attack this Vikings defense? Well, this Vikings defense, to me, Dave, if you want to attack them, you got to beat the blitz. And one of the easiest ways to beat the blitz is exactly what this Commanders team likes to do. They love to throw screens. They love to throw short air raid-esque concepts. Attack holes in the zone. Throw behind the blitz. Put these corners in conflict. Put these defenders doing all these simulated pressures in conflict. So now they have to make a lot quicker decisions. And then instead of, maybe you can take away some of those simulated pressures, because once they're taking a step forward and then they're going back, all of a sudden the ball's already out and it's going out to the sideline. And now you have to do a complete bailout. Oh, now you're blocked. And you weren't able to clear that blocker. Like, some of those things will matter in this game. And Cliff Kingsbury, I don't love him as a play caller. I think he's a little bit overrated, because I think he uses way too much of the college air raid element, which the college air raid is great because they utilize space so well, but you can't do those things in the NFL the same way. And I think some of those limitations in the college game have translated with him up into the NFL. And we saw those with Kyler Murray as well. So,
yeah, but didn't Jayden Daniels play air raid at LSU?
I don't know if it was a traditional air raid. Like, Cliff Kingsbury runs the Mike Leach air raid, which is very traditional. It stems straight from the creator of the air raid, Hell Mummy. Let me look up. I think it was it Sloan? Oh, it was Mike Denbrock. I don't know if he
those who
runs
don't
the
know,
area.
Jayden Daniels was a full go participant today in practice, according to the injury report.
Who was?
Jayden Daniels.
Okay.
As was
that's
J.J. McCarthy.
okay. So Denbrock, he does run some air raid concepts. I mean, everybody runs Y cross, but yeah, he's an interesting guy. They don't do a ton of air raidy stuff, but they do some of it, and I think that's why they really prioritize Jayden Daniels, because what Daniels does really well is he does throw the like stuff like Y cross. He throws mesh really well. He ends up throwing quick concepts like sticks, slants. Like, it's get the ball, fire right away. So in that sense, it's kind of nice. And then they do a lot of the like shock. So you have a hitch on the outside and then a slot fade running right behind it. He loves throwing those concepts, and you see a lot of that with the Commanders. Can the Vikings do enough to stop that short passing game with how they like to play? That to me is the biggest question. And one area where I think the Vikings can really maximize is, look, you got to use the emergence of Dallas Turner. And we talked about Turner last night on X's and SKOLs. Highly recommend you go check that out. Turner's baseline of play has improved significantly. And Brian Flores has talked about it. I'll pull up the quote here in just a second, because one of the interesting things about Turner is he came in super raw. And by coming in super raw, you have to figure things out. And they wanted him to do a lot of different elements for this Minnesota Vikings team. They wanted him to be a dropper. They wanted him to be a rusher. They wanted him to be just a stout run defender. They had to get a baseline of strength onto him that he just didn't have. 247 pounds. Now he's closer to 255, 260. And I think there's another level of strength that they can add, because we're not talking about, oh, he just added 15 pounds of strength. He uses a steroid. When you build a baseline of strength, when you are this kind of athlete, when you're doing a lot of explosive type workouts, that's not conducive to building muscle. So it takes a lot of time. Remember when Andre Carter joined the Vikings, and we talked about the contrast between Army training and NFL training, and how Army training is all about endurance. NFL training is all about explosiveness and doing things like running sprints and explosive drills like box jumps. Army, it's about being able to run a mile with your giant pack. It's about being
a mile, more like 12 or 15.
Yeah, you know what? That's a better point. You're talking about being able to outlast everybody else. You're not talking about being able to beat them to a corner. And that was the big thing with Andre Carter. He had the weight, but he didn't have the strength, because when you play at Army, you have to do both. You have to be a strong player, but you also have to do all of your Army stuff. And that's where Carter struggled. And you know what? If he were at a different university, I think he would be a much better NFL player, because he's got talent. It was just all about his body and the body composition. And that is a big factor here. And it sucks. But when you're a guy like Turner, you can use some of those same conversations. If you want to stay explosive, you have to gain the muscle the right way. So he's eating a lot of peanut butter and jelly. Those Uncrustables, baby. Everybody loves a good Uncrustable. Sponsor us. We love you. They're also lifting a ton of weights and doing a lot of explosive drills. It's not just about bulking up like Arnold. Arnold can't run. So when you run, it counteracts strength training. So it's difficult to gain that kind of muscle when you're that kind of player. So being able to get to where they want him full time, it was probably a 2-year project. And I think, like, kind of looking back in hindsight, I should have seen that as more of a 2-year instead of a 1-year project, which I think that's a good learning lesson for me when we're talking about a player like Turner, when you need to build that kind of strength. Two off seasons after the rookie season, I think, is a pretty fair spot to be in. And Turner's played really well. 202 pass rushes, and he has 31 pressures. He's second on the team, 15.35% pressure percentage. And he's played over 500 snaps this year. He has 5 games above 50 snaps, a couple games above 60. And he's done a really good job of improving those baseline elements. I liked what Luke said last night. And this is where kind of I like having conversations with Luke, because the discussion points about the strength profile are interesting, because when I watched him, and I really focused on when he's trying to set the edge against a stagnant blocker. So when he's just lined up over left tackle, how does he handle the left tackle? Well, he's in his stance and he's able to brace. He's not easily displaced. Luke mentioned, which I love talking to Luke, because Luke sees things better than I do right now. And I learn a lot just by having conversations with him. When you watch pullers and you watch guys in motion like tight ends, and they get a running start, and then Turner has to brace for that, he gets displaced much easier. And it's easy to watch him out in that sense.
Most players do. That's hard to defeat.
It is, but the best ones do. And I think that's the biggest area where Turner needs to grow and develop. And that's where that strength profile comes in.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot easier to blow up a tight end when you're 265 than you're 255. And he's already figured out, hey, speed to power is his go-to. Now, can you stem it? Can you do the speed to power and then do a rip afterwards, which is how he got the sack against Charles Cross? Can you use that ghost move every now and then? And Luke made a really good point. And it goes to what Von Miller said, like, everybody focuses on the cool move. But in reality, 90 to 95% of your pass rush wins and your sacks are just going to be because you're bigger, faster, stronger than the other guy on a given play. Yeah, ghost move is cool. The club rip is cool. But can you just run through a dude's face? Can you run around a dude? That's how most of those wins come. And Turner, I think, has that down with the speed to power. And with the improved strength, it will make that better, but the technique is there. Now, if he can just have a couple change-ups. 3 plays a game, go to the ghost move. And then you get them thinking. Because then they're not just setting up for speed to power anymore. Now they have to kind of react to what you're doing. And then by waiting for you to make the move instead of setting up for what they think you're going to do, then you have the advantage. And that's where I think Turner's next step of development is going to be. Just continue that strength and learn another secondary move. It's like a pitcher.
Or tertiary.
Yeah, almost every pitcher has a fastball and a curve. Can you perfect a changeup? Can you perfect the slider / sweeper? Can you add a knuckleball? A cutter? That's what we're talking about. It's the same conversation. So here's something. Go ahead.
Well, I was about to say, Vikings PR, it must be Dallas Turner's day, because they put out 2 posts today. One, that he has recorded at least 1 sack in each of his past 3 games. It is tied for the longest streak by a Viking aged 22 or younger since 2000, Danielle Hunter, in weeks 14 through 16 in 2015, in weeks 1 through 3 in 2016. So if he's doing something that Danielle Hunter did, that's good. And then the second tweet they put out is he joins Pro Football Hall of Famer Jared Allen, 2008 to 2009 season, as the only Vikings to record at least 4 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 5 tackles for loss, plus a partridge in a pear tree because it's that time of year, in a 3-game span since 1999.
Pretty impressive when you're in that kind of company.
Mm-hmm.
I am very interested to see how Turner continues to grow and develop. I want to get to this quote that I mentioned earlier. So Brian Flores continues to be asked about Dallas Turner in his suits of press conferences. And this one came from Matthew Collar. So shout out to him for asking. And he continues to ask about him, which I think is a good thing, because some of the things with Turner, that it's all about splash plays for a lot of people. But I think what Flores broke down really encapsulates a lot of the, I'm not going to call it issues, but it doesn't encapsulate everything that goes on with an edge rusher, okay? So this is the start of it. Quote, I think he's made improvements since he got here. With young players, everyone wants it right now. And I think if you look at rookies over, I don't know how much time, it really happens that way. It takes time to learn the defense, to learn the techniques and fundamentals, to learn the things that you do well individually. Because I think every player has to play to their strengths. I think Dallas is starting to figure that out. I think he's working really hard at it. Let's go to the second part of this quote. And this is the big one. I think it's the splash plays that everyone says, okay, now he's starting to figure it out. But I think it's a lot of the little things that aren't as splashy that he's also doing well. And I think that's where his focus has got to be, because when you do those little things, normally the big plays show up. I feel I say this every year. You have the 10-sack season, but there are 1,000 snaps in the season. So what do you do on the other 990 snaps? When you put it in those terms, it's a very small percentage that oftentimes you're judged on. And with Dallas, those are showing up in a positive way. And we love them, but he's doing a lot of the little things well too. He's still developing. He's still young, but he's moving and certainly doing so in the right direction. The splash plays are great. Splash plays don't mean anything if you're not doing anything for all the other plays. And that's why I'm really proud of how we've covered Dallas Turner this year, because we've been, especially myself, been very consistent that he's playing good football. And he's doing a lot of the little things much better. And it's being overlooked in a similar way to Anthony Barr. Now, look, Barr was a Pro Bowler almost immediately. And we're not talking about Turner in those terms. It's an archetype thing. I cover the Florida Gators still for A to Z Sports, and I compared a recruit to Percy Harvin. And I did so in archetype. And I think that, and when I do comps for NFL draft prospects, it's play style. This guy plays like this guy. And so when you project it, now when you look at the traits, it's like, okay, he plays like this guy. Well, can he do that in the NFL based on his traits? That's the question that we're having. So he's the archetype of Anthony Barr, especially if they made Anthony Barr a pass rusher. All the little things that he does get overlooked because they don't show up on the stat sheet. Anthony Barr was an elite player for about the Vikings for about 6 or 7 years. A true game changer in ways you'll never see because of how he clogged up passing lanes, because of how good he was as a blitzer. Yeah, they never used him as a traditional edge, but that doesn't matter because those little things add up. You do the fundamental things, splash plays will come. It's like with wide receivers, no block, no rock. They're not going to throw to you unless you're a willing blocker. I don't care how good you are as a receiver. If you're not going to try, who's going to throw to you? Like, it's that thing. So, very interested to see how Dallas Turner continues to thrive and grow and develop. And Brian Flores talking about the little fundamental things really emphasizes everything that we've said on this show. Turner's not a finished product, but he's gotten better at the basics. When you get better at the basics, the sacks come. I want to answer a couple questions from Daniel. Is Beefo coming back next year? I don't know. Is KFC coming back next year? I don't say that it should be performative or anything, but if KOC doesn't come back next year, will they want to have Brian Flores as the DC, or will they want to have their own guy? Or will Brian Flores maybe become the head coach? Plus, Brian Flores did not sign a contract extension, so that factors in here too. I'm going to be paying attention to the defense coordinator thing because I think his contract doesn't expire until February 8th because that's when he signed his initial contract. Remember, he was a late hire. So we'll find out. And then second question, with our remaining schedule, I truly don't believe we can win any of these games beyond the opponent team blowing it, shooting themselves a whole game long. Could we go 4-13? Yeah, but let's also be real. If they won 5 in a row, I don't think anybody would be that surprised because this team has played well this year. Even in losses, they've played well. If J.J. McCarthy has a good 5 games, this team could win all 5. I don't think anybody would be shocked at it. Would it be a little bit of a surprise? I think so, because he has not been consistent at all this year. But if he just puts it together, would anybody be truly surprised? I don't think so. I mean, this guy did go 10th overall. There's a reason he went 10th overall. It's because they believe he has the ability to do that. I think the Vikings will get 1 or 2 wins in the final few weeks. I think they're going to beat one of the Packers or Lions at home. Probably the Lions, if I had to guess. But they do have a rest advantage against the Packers. I think they have a chance to beat both the Giants and the Cowboys over the next 2 weeks. But we'll see. It's the NFL. Anything can happen. Before we go, I want to talk about the other aspect of what this game means. NFL draft. We don't necessarily we haven't spent a ton of time talking about it. I did have a 3-round mock draft that I did with a couple of coworkers, Destin Adams and Kyle Krabs at A to Z Sports. And we did 3 rounds, and I made the Vikings picks. I gave them defensive tackle Peter Woods from Clemson, safety AJ Halsey from LSU, and running back Nicholas Singleton from Penn State. We didn't do comp picks. We're not going to do comp picks until they're officially announced, but the Vikings will have a 3rd-round comp pick. It will be at 97th overall. But the NFL draft is a very interesting one for the Vikings. Right now, they're slated to pick 11th. The Commanders are slated to pick 6th. The Commanders are the second highest picking team of the 4 3-9 teams with a winning or a strength of schedule percentage. This is going to be a huge tiebreaker element, okay? So strap in at 512. The Cleveland Browns have a strength of schedule of 483. That's going to change here. So the Vikings are the 3rd of the 3 teams on the list of 4 and 8 teams at 11th overall. They have a strength of schedule at 529. The Bengals are 1 spot ahead of them at 520. And then the Falcons are ahead of them at 500. Well, guess what? If the Vikings lose, it's actually going to hinder both of those. But then the Commanders winning will actually it could actually hurt them a little bit because, well, no, it won't hurt them because they'll be 4 and 9. So I'm doing this live. I'm trying to calculate it in my head. So it's a very interesting thing, and it's going to be very fluid for the next 5 weeks because every team on your schedule that you play will impact this. So all of a sudden, everybody on your schedule wins. It's going to make it harder for you to get a higher pick. If they lose, it's going to make it easier. And the Vikings could go technically as high as 5th. If they lose, they'll probably go up to like 8th or 7th. And the more they lose, the higher they get. Right now, 5th is probably, I'd say, the highest realistically they'll get. Tennessee is 1-11. The Giants are 2-11. The Saints and Raiders are 2-10. Are any of those teams winning enough games to get to 4 to make it a tiebreaker scenario? I don't think so. So, especially when it comes to tiebreakers, individual games matter if 2 teams are tied. So, if the Vikings and Bengals are tied, the Bengals will have the higher draft pick. Right now, the Bengals, Falcons, and Vikings are tied. And because it's a 3-way tie, then it's by strength of record. Sorry, strength of schedule. And the better your strength of schedule, the more likely you are to lose, therefore, worse draft pick. A lower strength of schedule, which the Browns have a 483 strength of schedule, 48.3%. Fun fact, the Bears have a 43.9% strength of schedule, the lowest in the National Football League.
And they're the number 1 NFCC right now. That's obviously going to change. But
yeah, I think they're going to lose to the Packers this weekend. They did beat the Eagles, but let's put it this way. The Eagles aren't exactly a good football team. Good players, good management, not a good football team.
Well, I don't want the Packers to win at all, period.
I don't either, but I think
if we only win one more game this season, I want it to be against the Packers.
Oh, I'm not talking about wanting it. I'm just saying, like, from an analysis point of view, I think that's what happens. I think the Packers are going to smoke them because I just don't think that the Bears are that good. Hey, we got Australian Scolder here. Thank you very much for joining. It's got to be pretty early up in Australia right now. It's probably got to be about 6, 7 a.m. So thank you for joining us. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And Friday fun day, baby. Yeah, we're going to do a lot more NFL draft stuff. Once the Vikings are eliminated, I think we'll bust out our first mock draft, and that could be next week. So we'll see.
All it takes is a Packers win or a Vikings loss. Either one works.
Yeah, pretty much. And that's going to be our show. Thank you guys so much for joining. Don't forget 2 Old Bloggers on Saturday, 10:05 Central Time. And then we're going to have the post-game show on Sunday, starting at the 2-minute warning. Oh, it's 11:57 a.m. Oofta. Happy lunchtime.
Who you picking for tonight's game between the blue and silver and the blue and silver?
Ooh, I really want the Cowboys to win. I really want the Cowboys to win.
Okay. I was thinking I want Detroit to win because I don't want them interfering, in case we win a few of these games, interfering with us finishing in 4th place.
Oh.
In the division.
That's fair. It doesn't it's not going to be very impactful for I guess it is impactful because if you play a 4th place schedule, it only impacts 3 games. So those 3 games can be a difference.
3 games.
Just look at what's going on with the Bears right now. Those 3 games are mattering.
Yep, and it affects strength of schedule.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we're higher and the Bears are lower.
Yeah, it's I'm very interested to see this game tonight and how it's going to impact the Amon-Ra St. Brown is he's going to play. We'll see how effective he is because he left the game ankle sprain, so we'll see. But yeah, go check it out. Underdog play. Go play that. Promo code Forno, Forno. And we will see you over the weekend.
2 Old Bloggers.
He's Dave.
We're celebrating our 5th year together.
There we go. You've been together almost as long as Caitlin and I.
Mm-hmm.
We're at 5 years and 3 months. I'm Tyler. He's Dave. SKOL Vikings, everybody.
SKOL Vikings. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell to get notifications. It helps us grow this community that we all love our Minnesota Vikings. And on behalf of Tyler Forness and myself, Dave Stefano, thank you so dearly for watching The Real Forno Show. SKOL, everyone!